I'm Jay Moran.
I'm Bridget Jaipal Valenza.
I'm Thomas O'Neill White.
I'm Angelique Preston.
We need to get together and let our voices be heard.
This is What's Next, a dedicated hour to have important conversations about the issues facing the marginalized and underrepresented communities of Western New York and Southern Ontario.
We're going to have some real healing. We've got to have space to tell some uncomfortable truth.
What's Next continues our mission to discuss race,
Equity,
And the common concerns of Buffalo's East Side and beyond.
In the suburban area, everywhere, we must work and teach our children.
Welcome to What's Next. Today we have the editor and the publisher of Buffalo Latino Village with us, Alberto Capas. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here.
And the editor, Solomon Joseph. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jay.
All right, let's just get into the origins of Buffalo Latino Village, first and foremost. From where did it start?
Well, that's a short story and a long story. I'll try to go in the
find
middle.
find a nice little sweet spot in between.
When I first came back to Buffalo, relocated back in 2012, and I had a seizure, so it took me a while to kind of nurse the healing process, and then in a year, when I started realizing the local Latino community, I started, traveling around, researching it because I used to live here and kind of recapture my memories. And I started realizing that there was a lot of lack of information. There were two in other Latino publications, but they were not providing the kind of information that the community would need it.
Okay.
There was no real platform for freedom of expression. There was no platform for independence. Everything was kind of politically controlled. So I went back and told my kids I'm going to have to start a publication again, because I used to publish other publications in the past. And my daughters, when they brought me back to Buffalo, they try to make me promise them that I will not get involved in anything. I would just retire and enjoy my retirement. And I told I'd think about that, but when I came back, I just started seeing that I needed to reactivate my activism in Buffalo. I could not just retire. So I started publishing the Buffalo Latino Village in 2017.
Okay.
Was the first issue. I started with 4 pages. From 4 pages in 2 years, it went up to 8 pages. And then from 8 pages went to 12 pages, which we have now.
Wow.
And basically the publication, is a platform to advocate and to provide information of what's going on in the city of Buffalo and how that affects the Puerto Rican Latino community. It's really access to information, community planning, talking about access to job opportunities, where are the jobs, who's making the decisions about what, and also providing poets and writers and artists an opportunity to publish and exhibit their work. Buffalo is a very elitist community when it comes to the arts. So we have been able to open up those channels to local emerging poets, writers, artists, So we're an avenue for that, We advocate, we set things in motion,
right?
And then you take it from there. But I've been very confident, very happy with how far we have come with the publication.
Yeah, if you've expanded to 12 pages, that speaks volumes, doesn't it,
Right.
in a lot of ways. Well, how about for you, Solomon? Your story. How did you end up at Buffalo Latino Village?
Oh, it was by accident. I went to use the restroom as Jim's Steakhouse, picked up the paper and said, let me call this paper because I wanted to connect with a Puerto Rican dance and performance group. So in New York City, I taught, performed, and hosted a lot of those heritage international festivals you see in schools. And what I would do is round up my performance buddies from different cultures and really present a story. And so when I got to Buffalo, I said, I can't find a Latino community. Then when I picked up the paper, my goal was to really get a hold of the dance performance group. But when I spoke with him, left him a message, he called me back and said, hey, let's meet and talk more. So I thought this was a good opportunity to really understand the makeup of the community. So we sat down And first thing he proposed was an article. He said, you have this program, which I call Manifest Diversity. He said, why don't you write a column and introduce what diversity is, what it means for people, and where do you see us going with diversity? And I opened up a column about really helping other cultures understand who the Latino community was and who the Asian community was and different other ethnicities, which I felt through my experience is always sort of a disconnect, whether someone introduces them or someone sees some kind of media material that they're like, oh, I want to learn more. I sort of present a goal to bridge that, and through articles, through avenues and performing shows. I had a show lined up that I want to present, which I'll mention later on.
Sure.
But it's really part of this grand celebration of cultures that I found.
You said something, and I'm going to throw this question back out to both of you, and we'll start with you, Alberto. You just heard Solomon say, he wanted to know who, or wanted to say or express who is the Latino community.
Well,
express it to me from your thoughts.
The Latino community, basically, the majority of the Latino community is Puerto Rican.
Okay.
First of all, I would say 90% plus of the Latino community is Puerto Rican, mostly concentrated on the lower side. That's the Latino community. The rest of it's a small pocket of Dominican Americans and Cubans, and then the rest of Latin America from South America. But the majority of the Latino population in Buffalo, New York, is Puerto Rican. Yeah, actually, I have an issue because we talked about a lot of the Latino organizations in Buffalo address themselves as to Hispanic,
right?
Hispanic League, Hispanic Women's League. Everything is Hispanic.
Right.
I particularly, don't like the term Hispanic. Hispanic has roots in Spain, and Spain are responsible for what they did to my ancestors. They're responsible for enslaving Puerto Rico. They're responsible for what happens with the Taino Indians. And I don't think I will give the Hispanics the honor for me to call myself Hispanic American.
That is a very powerful statement there, and I appreciate that. But I'll turn the question and let Solomon answer his own personal. So then, like you said, you went out to explain who is the Latino community. So what was your explanation?
So it was the identity that people self-identify as. So when I grew up, it was Puerto Ricans, it was Dominicans, it was Cubans, it was Venezuelans, it was Mexicans. So when we try to generalize an identity, we lose the individual differences. And in New York City, I hear the word melting pot a lot. But through reading and other experiences, I realized it's more of a salad bowl because you're inviting and you're getting a feel and taste of different ingredients, which can be described as people offering the same type of cultural experience. So we don't lose the single identity that makes everyone unique, and we trace that to language. We trace that to the dialects, the way we talk, communicate, hand gesture, body language. So that represents a culture, and those are tribes. Now my ancestors are from India. But growing up in New York City, being born and raised, I encountered the Latino community, the Black and African community, the Asian community, and the Jewish community. So this was what I saw as the salad bowl for me. So learning and experiencing and picking up the languages. I didn't know I was able to embrace other cultures, the language, the lifestyles, the dialects, and I infused that into my way of being, and I became a dance teacher from that just by experience.
Wow.
So learning dance, performing dance, and then teaching it, and really finding a common denominator to say if we just open ourselves to embrace others, maybe that can be the first spark for invitation. And that's exactly how I got pulled in with the Latino Village, starting off as a columnist and ending up becoming an editor and now managing the publication.
How do you describe, when people ask you about the Buffalo Latino Village, how do you describe it to them, Alberto?
Well, first of all, although we call it the Latino Village, people need to know we have over 8 columnists, and two of the columnists are white. Mm-hmm. We used to have 2 black columnists. They're gone. I didn't throw them out; they just left on their own. But we have
Tough to keep good people.
several Latino. We have a Dominican American columnist.
Oh, okay.
So we are a rainbow. We're open. So I mean, we're not just a Latino publication or a Puerto
Right.
Rican publication. We just
That's
wanna
the name of
provide-
the village.
That's the name of Latino Village.
Right.
It's just like having a footprint to it's the legacy of the publication, but it's open to everyone, and our readership proves that. We get a lot of good feedback, a lot of comments.
And also, I think it speaks a lot in the sense that you have these different people with different perspectives who want to get their viewpoints out.
Yeah. Well, that's the one of the keys is providing platforms, not just for Alberto Capa, who's the publisher, to manipulate and give a platform. The publication is there as an avenue for young, emerging people to be part of it and giving them the platform they never had.
Right.
So it's giving them that opportunity, that power to be able to utilize their voice and to reach the community, segment of the community, through the avenues of the Latino Village.
And are there common themes that we see inside there from the columnists? I mean, are they more concerned with local issues, national issues, cultural issues?
Well, they all have their own perspective and their own interest in terms of their own experience, and we allow them to have that. Because when they first come on board, we make it very clear that it's their column. They're not writing for me to censor them. To edit it to a point that it changes the content of what they want to say. So they have that power, and they know it's their column. The only thing we do is just correct the English, the grammar here and there.
Sure.
Okay, but it's their column. So we have Angelica Aquino, who's from Florida, who
Okay.
writes a column for us, and although she's Dominican American, she's very interested in writing about Puerto Ricanos. So she spends a lot of time writing about Puerto Rican issues.
Okay.
We have another writer who she calls it college spotlight, and she basically writes about individuals who have achieved and accomplished things in the Buffalo Latino community. So every month she's highlighting an individual. Then we have another individual, Taya Rodriguez, who also has the column called La Hispana, and she also highlights Latina women and who have achieved things in the business community, education, and so on. Can you add to that in terms of the other writers?
We also have on board a documentary filmmaker who was born and raised in Buffalo, moved to Florida, and now is back. And he really celebrates the sort of the data and the research that is sometimes missed for our community, because that leads us into the real problem that's going on, a collection of what's going on. It's not just one or two voices. This is what's going on and affecting the whole community. And these are the numbers to prove that. And he created a documentary called Boricua Soy Yo. And it was well received because of the touch of Buffalo and his hometown on the west side, and really going nationally. So our writers really focus on national issues, but with a community focus, because sometimes the national issues affect what's going on locally.
Most certainly.
Whatever's going on in New York City is most likely going to affect New York State. So,
Right.
and vice versa. So they focus on community aspects, and also comment on what's going on in case people are wondering, what do we have to say as a community on larger issues.
I want to see if you could, Solomon, maybe just give me an idea of what it's like, because there's a generational gap here between you and Alberto, as there is between me and you as well. I'll have to mention that as well. But are there things that you learn? Are there understandings that you get from working with someone like Alberto?
Oh, absolutely. A huge library of wisdom from his time, and the huge difference that we see growing up. I mean, I'm a millennial, And today's my birthday. I'm 38 today.
Happy birthday. 38. All right, man, you're young.
Well, I try to be young, and I think we feed off of each other in terms of the wisdom, because if we look at the 70s and 80s, it was a real revolutionary time of ideas, of movements that we are taking advantage today. So because of those struggles, we are able to really utilize that knowledge in a way that we may have taken it for granted. So the libraries, the books we read, the access that we have now is a result of the struggles that Alberto's time and era went through. And so I really take that as a thanksgiving of sorts of what we're able to see and accomplish, and also not lose that library of thought. So whatever I've learned about the Latino community, the history, the struggles, I want to pass that on to others as an educator. I want to really tell that side of the story that sometimes often gets left out.
It's easy for me to get go down the wormhole of history. And Alberto, I just it intrigued me how Solomon talked about how you came of age maybe at a little different time where things weren't maybe as easy.
I'm a product of the '60s and the '70s.
What was it like for you in the '60s?
Wow, it's very exciting, very educational, very informative. When I came to the University of Buffalo, I was really kind of prepared to deal with what was going on in the world, in the country. Because in New York City, I graduated from a school called Harlem Prep. Harlem Prep is not very well known, has a history, has a legacy, and there's been a lot of books written about it. I was graduated from high school with a general diploma with nowhere to go, and Harlem Prep kind of recruited me and gave me a lot of information about the history, Black history, American history, worked with me to understand who I was as a human being, as a Puerto Rican, as a spiritual being, understanding my purpose on the planet, So that was a bunch of goodies that I was able to internalize. And when I came to Buffalo, I was well packaged, understanding that. So I immediately joined the movement, to change the world. I was the founder of the first Puerto Rican student organization at the University of Buffalo. I was part of the Attica Service Committee. That was a hell of an experience.
You got to be careful. I might start asking about all these. We won't be talking to Solomon this way, but please continue.
I was part of the bringing in more Puerto Rican Latino students to the university, kind of protesting against the university administration to recruit more minority students. I'm directly responsible for the development of the Puerto Rican Studies Department at that time, bringing in students to the medical school, law school. Also became Associate Director of the Office of Minority Student Affairs when I graduated, which was an office that I helped create while I was a student. Then we developed 4 hours of programming there at BFO. So with all that experience, then when I graduated, besides working at the University of Buffalo, I was very heavily involved with the local Puerto Rican Latino community. That really was my introduction to local politics.
What was it like, though, being a minority student at the University of Buffalo in the late '60s?
I didn't feel like a minority. The only time I feel like a minority is when the administration was denying people of color opportunities to be part of the university community. Other than that, I had a lot of support from white students, black students, and plus I was proud of who I was, so I didn't have any hang-ups or worry about that. But I knew there was a lot of problems, I got arrested once or twice for inciting to riot, protest, things like that. Part of the movement. It was a very exciting era. Today, I'm 78 years old, and I think of most of the things that a lot of students during that time sacrificed to make those opportunities and benefits available today. And I get upset, because students take, like you say, it takes things for granted.
Right.
They take things for granted. That's a lot of, even a lot of the young leaders today who manipulating and mistreating or just taking advantage and growing at the back of the community don't realize that they had those opportunities because people like me made those things possible, you know. So people don't see the link, you know. So, you know, so it's a slap in the face to the '60s generation to see things like that.
We're talking today in What's Next with the publisher, Alberto Capas, and the editor, Solomon Joseph of Buffalo Latino Village. I'll ask you, editor Solomon Joseph. I hear Alberto talking about. I mean, it's clear that sense of activism from the late '60s. Do you feel like that shows up in Buffalo Latino Village?
Oh, absolutely. If you get a chance to browse through the past issue, it's always a call to action that this is the problem, this is what we need to do. Even if someone is writing about, you know, flowers and gardens, they'll say even they are struggling to stay alive, waiting for the sun and the rain. So our columnists really try to make an effort to reach out to the community and engage them in some sort of way, whether they want to write a poem, whether they want to create music, whether they want to create short biopics of things that matter, that will set a long generation of history that should be passed down. So I see that in the Latino Village almost monthly. We are a monthly issue.
Right.
And our website will archive all of our content that is labeled as the pillars of business and economic development, arts and culture, community advocacy. And we try to have a central theme of what the community wants to see or what they want to change or what they wish for others to learn more about any problems and possibly with the solutions we can come up with.
Well, then you opened up a nice subject matter there, and we can have this conversation between the three of us. What does the community want to change? So it's showing up in the Buffalo Latino Village. What are some of those things that are those hot topics? Those things that you know. I'm sure when you publish this, you're getting responses, and you know when you're hitting that nerve.
Well, I'm going to relay that question to Alberto.
Yeah, I was going to say what you're talking about that. There's two things that we're now, two projects that we just added to the Buffalo Latino Village, and also it's based on need. One of the things that's happening also in the city of Buffalo is that we know more about what's happening in the white community than the white community knows what's happening in the Latino community. And the problem with that, or why that problem exists, is that unfortunately in the political arena, you could have good representation or you could have bad representation. Or you could have, yes, representation because those who are leading don't have the awareness or the skills or the talent to lead. Sometimes it's intentional, sometimes not intentional. So we developed, for example, a Latino Speakers Bureau. We want the white community to know who is the Latino community, what are our desires, what do we want, you know, how do we want to fit in, how do we want you to fit in, you know. So we're trying to develop that link and open those avenues so that the white community becomes aware of who is the Latino, who are the professionals, who are our students, who are our architects, who are our scientists, our psychologists, you know. So we want to do that.
Right.
Okay. The other thing that we started doing, and it goes back to the art piece, is that we saw a lot of Latinos who like to paint, and they're not having the opportunity to get their work exposed at a platform. I was mentioning the art in this town is very elitist, so it's tough to break through. So we're providing that opportunity for Latino artists, which is dire need. The other thing we started doing is that we are seeing a lot of Latinos are self-publishing, and they're spending a lot of money because if you don't understand the publishing industry, you get taken by vanity presses.
Mm-hmm.
So to we have reached out to a lot of the Latino writers in our community and tried to inform them. We have published articles about, legitimate publishing and self-publishing. So we have developed a Latino Village Press
for books.
component.
Something like
So
that.
we have published a few writers,
Mhm.
and we'd like to publish more. So we're doing that. So those are two basic needs. But basically, a Latino community needs the same thing everybody needs: access to information, opportunities, job opportunities, quality jobs. So that's what the Buffalo Latino Village is trying to do: is to advocate and open those avenues of information and also education. One of our columnists dedicates her life and her column to write about the healing process from a spiritual perspective. So that's bringing information, a different point of view, to the community. Talking about spiritualism and our position or our space in the planet and who we are, spiritual beings and whatnot. Those are things that necessarily conversations don't take place in many communities. It's kind of isolated. So we're trying to bring that out to the public, at least to expose those subject matters, So basically, what we need is access to information, and the Latino Village serves as the platform to advocate for that, make it happen.
And I certainly appreciate that. At the same time, are there, and you touched on a couple of issues, but I'm wondering if there's others, though, that the Latino community knows more about the white community in Buffalo than the white community knows about the Latino community. What are the things that seem to really, beyond some of those things that are really hot buttons?
Well, again, the individual identities. If you look at the makeup of the Caribbean, which includes the islands of Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, even Haiti and Jamaica, they are centered, a little bit close to the U.S., whereas you look at Latin America and South America, you'll see every country has their own language, culture, and way of life. So the generalization piece, I think, is important to really make that distinction.
Okay.
So even the root word of Latino has a long history, as Alberto explained, of why he prefers to be called a Latino. So I think that's going to be a long discussion, and a publication like ours can really
Keep
have
that discussion
recurring
going. Yeah.
themes going, and even the evolution of those ideas and names. Now you'll see Latinx, Latine, and those are gender inclusive, and really gives you a background of who prefers to be called what. So it's not up to the media or an organization to define or put a label. It's really up to the individual. So we invite that in our publication. And also in honor of Black History Month, we are as much tied to the Black and African experience than most people know.
Which comes again, we know more about blacks than blacks know about me. Yeah.
Okay.
If you read see the back page of the Buffalo Latino Village,
Okay.
the whole page is dedicated
Oh, yes, it is,
to our
yeah.
contributions as Afro Puerto Ricans.
Or Afro-Latinos.
Afro
Right.
Latinos.
Yeah.
How about this for a topic to kind of kick around? And Alberto, you've got a little more experience than you do, Solomon. But are barriers of understanding breaking down, or are they still just
Now, when you say barriers of breaking
barriers
down,
of understanding? Like we were just talking how we went from the white community doesn't know as much about the Latino communities, but are those barriers of understanding, are they breaking down, or are they still just as large, or are they different?
I think they're different in the sense. They're not as harsh but I don't think they have broken down. No, I don't. I live in the Lower West Side, and I think that's one of the most diversified area in Buffalo. People do get along with each other. People smile at each other. People say hello, good morning, how you doing? When I leave the Lower West Side and go to other parts of Buffalo, Kenmore, Amherst, you don't see that harmony. You don't see it. You see it in the Lower West Side, So I guess, but no, we still have a lot of work to do.
Sure.
Bringing people together. That's when it comes to living together, I think there's a lot of hypocrisy, a lot of contradiction. A lot of times we pretend just for the comfort of it, But we really need to learn how to love each other and really appreciate each other. We are all come from the same roots. We all a gift from God, from the universe, and people have to begin to realize that,
I see you shaking your head in affirmation there, Solomon.
Well, I mean, again, it's the wisdom that he's collected over his experience can really attest to, I think, the change that Alberto wants to see. But, being an educator and really exploring ways to educate the community, I think when other organizations celebrate Latino History Month, they have a chance to really explore the foundation, the deeper history, the cultures, but it's only limited to a month. So I think there should be a recurring theme in an effort to challenge the barriers or break the barriers in terms of doing outreach, understanding who we are affiliated with, understanding the other connections that we're able to make. And there's so many connections we've built based on the themes that we've centered around, that we want at least a service or an organization for each cause, back to the information that we want to provide, whether it's coming from the city, whether it's coming for other parts of Buffalo. We want to be a bridge. So we are in the discussion and the solution to break those barriers.
Yeah, when you mentioned Hispanic Heritage Month, I think that's something.
Which right off the bat, you have a
that's
problem with the
something
title.
we should do every day, not one dedicated month. The contradiction with Hispanic Heritage Month, and I guess it's different in New York City, different in Rochester, but here in Buffalo, Hispanic Heritage Month, it's really, in terms of the celebration, events, and activities, it's really controlled politically. All right. In the sense that if you look at all the events that take place for the month of Hispanic Heritage Month in Buffalo, it's all singing and dancing, but there's no workshops, no seminars to talk about who are we as Puerto Ricans, who are we as Latinos, what's the difference between Dominican, Puerto Rico. I mean, we need those discussions. You need to educate, and yes, you need that education. People need to learn who they are. Hispanic Heritage Month, talk about all the Latin American countries got their independence in September. Actually, Hispanic Heritage Month in September was designed that day because that's the month where all the Latin American countries got their independence.
Okay.
Well, not Puerto Rico. So why is Puerto Rico celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month? So these are the discussions that have to take place. Well, you need to build a platform for people to talk to each other and educate each other. So that's one thing that's missing in Buffalo. Hispanic Heritage Month, all they do is sing and dance, sing and dance. They don't have seminars, they don't have workshops, they don't have provocative subject matters to really enhance the community.
And do you see the one you have? I'm sure people engage with you all the time, that there is a thirst, though, for that kind of dialogue?
Absolutely. We just held our very first community planning event last week.
Oh, really?
And that was really understanding if we want to focus more on the west side or if we want to open up new pockets or new avenues of integration or migration where cultures can really not only know about the west side but have an opportunity to know all of Buffalo.
Yeah. One of the things, again, one of the advocacy of the Buffalo Latino Village, that we started looking at community planning. We started looking at the city's 4-year plan for economic, business, housing development. And that's one subject, one issue that we have been kept out of. When I say we, the Latino community has not played a big role in that process. I'm sure that there are some leaders from that community, from the community, that have played a role, but they have not played a role to really benefit the whole community. They play a role to benefit a few. It's like an inner circle, a clique, and I like that to stop. I like to see the community really benefit.
Right.
So one of the discussions, or some of the discussions that are coming up now, we're able to get some people together, is that in community planning, you have the Lower West Side, where you have the.
Hey, and just let's make sure identify the Lower West Side. What you mean by it, if you don't mind.
Well, the majority of when you talk about the Puerto Rican Latino community,
Right.
it's really concentrated in the Lower West Side.
Right.
But because
So areas Niagara Street.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
There should be
Niagara Street.
a pamphlet with detailing the specs and route information, I
Right.
think, in the little
Right.
package.
Yeah.
So we're talking about Allen Street, Elmwood.
Yeah. But let me finish this point
I'm
first.
sorry. Yep.
The Lower West Side is identified as the Puerto Rican community.
Sure.
Okay.
Right.
Now, because of gentrification, Latinos started moving to the Upper West Side, and basically moving to the Riverside area.
Right.
And that's the difference. So the discussion is, because of community planning, we're talking about business economic development with an art theme or whatever. So now the question is, should we do it in the Lower West Side or should we do it in Riverside, where the Latinos moving to? So that's going to need a lot of discussions, and get people together, because it's a difficult issue. But the concern is that the Lower West Side, which has, for example, they have the Hispanic Heritage Institute that's being developed. It's
Right.
being sponsored by the Hispanic Heritage Council. That's there. But people moving out of there. So if you concentrate all your eggs in one basket and develop the Lower West Side, who are you developing the Lower West Side for?
Because it may not end up being
There
a
might be
Latino
no Latinos
community.
there.
Right.
On the other hand, Latinos moving up to Riverside. So that's an area to look at, because it might be the area where you really have to concentrate and invest in developing. There is an organization there called the Ebate Puerto Rican Center, and they're a marvelous organization. They do a lot of great things, and they come the closest to doing the kind of things that we're talking about. Identity, knowing who you are, workshops, seminars. They're not afraid to get out the comfort zone. They deal with those issues. They sponsored AOC to come up and do a presentation. They had another political Puerto Rican political prisoner, Lopez, who also came up. And the community loved it. A lot of people there, and that's one organization that has a lot of support from Latinos. So when you deal with the question of community development, you have to look at the Lower West Side and Riverside, and that's what.
Right,
he
and I
would
think
pertain to.
in the publication, if you
in the
open up
publication itself,
in the
yeah.
middle of the publication, there should be a sheet
Right.
that gives. I think it's stapled.
Right.
Should give you a nice idea about our reach.
Right.
Our routes. An overview of where we're focusing on, because it begs a larger question. If our community and population grows, where would be able to open up other avenues of arts, culture, and more community development. Because at one point, the West Side can be, densely populated,
Right.
and then, where else can they go for better opportunities? If you're talking about housing, according to our community, the housing market is ridiculously high. Maybe they cannot afford a house
Right.
on the West Side. How long are they going to rent for until they're able to have some independence of being a homeowner? So that's part of the community planning that we want to be able to set the stage for the next wave of Latinos who want to become, growing families or growing professionals, and the opportunities. So we want to be the advocacy group for that. And as he mentioned, the El Bate Puerto Rican Center is a great organization to really implement those ideas, because they bring in culture. They bring in good ideas. They bring in people to help them move the agenda forward. And
Right.
we're trying to create an agenda that benefits all, not just a few.
And when you were talking about El Bate and the political prisoner they brought in, you said the community loved it. What do you think caught that spirit? What was the connection? Do you think?
The hunger for information.
Just more information.
The hunger
that
for
relates
information, yeah, and the hunger to meet people who are on the national scene, like AOC. Everybody would just love to talk to her and meet her. Same thing with Lopez. I mean, so it's really the hunger for information.
Okay.
the hunger to learn, and that's missing. I joke with Solomon. I said, "Man, my community's a flat beer."
You need to put some more bubbles and sparkling stuff.
Yeah, you don't like flat beer, that's for sure. Hey, let's take a time out. We'll come back with more. We're talking with the publisher and editor of Buffalo Latino Village. With us, Solomon Joseph is the editor. Alberto Cappas is the publisher. This is What's Next on WBFO.
You're listening to What's Next, our place to discuss the important issues of our communities of Western New York and Southern Ontario. We want to hear from you. Click on the Talk to Us option in the WBFO app, and we will work to get your questions or comments on the air. Do you have a story or concern that we should be addressing? Email us using whatsnext@wbfo.org. Together, we'll have the conversations that are needed. This is WBFO, your NPR station.
We're back on What's Next. With us, Alberto Cappas and Solomon Joseph. Solomon is the editor of Buffalo Latino Village. Alberto is the a publisher of it. Hey, a lot to talk about in terms of art when it comes to your connection here. You have an online gallery for artists. I wanted to really talk about this because I know a couple have already touched upon it a few times here, Alberto, trying to lean us into this arts part of this conversation. Talk about, you've talked about the need because you feel like there's not enough, I guess, exposure or representation to artists.
No, there isn't. That resource is missing. I think we when you look at the Latino community, there's a place called El Museo del Barrio. That's located on Allen Street. It's a small art gallery. They don't really cater too much to, it's not their fault. It's the lack of information and access, but they do have a museo and they do have art exhibits. Many of the art exhibits are not Latino artists. They bring artists from other places. There is another group that develops called the Artistas de Barrio, and they're a group composed of artists, poets, and writers. It's a fairly new group, but they're all doing a great job.
Okay.
But there's a need. There is a need, so we need more people to join the bandwagon and bring that exposure, and that's why we developed the Outline Latino Art Gallery. Okay, we have around 20 artists that we have who are members. We continue to get more as we go along. We already had, although it's an online art gallery, we do exhibit in places. We had 2 exhibits at the Buffalo Art Space on Main Street, and we also had 2. We exhibited twice at the Bate Puerto Rican Center. So we want to continue doing that. We want to give these artists an exposure to people to appreciate, understand who they are as artists, and also to expose Latino art to the general community.
Are you seeing something that connects this art beyond personal self-expression? That there are themes of maybe that relate to the community that you're seeing in some of this art?
Well, the one thing I have experienced is that most of the artists that we have, Puerto Rican Latino artists, they're abstract painters.
Oh.
And I know people been commenting they want to see realism. So there's a lack of that. We need to attract and work with artists who are not just into abstract painting.
So you said there's about 20 artists that...
we have 20 artists.
Who can you tell me? What can you tell me about some of them?
They're local artists, but we are, because of the exposure, because we're also on social media,
right?
Facebook, Instagram. So we have like 3 or 4 artists who are not local. They're from New York City. One is from Florida. I think we have one from California, and we have others that we're looking at to be part of the online art gallery.
Right, so you'll find portraits, you'll find objects, the abstraction of what they're trying to create. And we also display histories of painters from history and past. So those were very community oriented. For example, our tie to the indigenous Taino community, which is infamous for being the Indians that greeted Columbus when he arrived.
He didn't greet them very well
So
back.
those paintings are still in existence, or people are recreating those images, capturing the community, or during the plantation era, where you'll find a mixture that we call Afro Latinos,
Right.
because of the inbreeding of soldiers from Spain, that many can trace the roots of being, the products of.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
the online Latino art gallery, it's a component of the Buffalo Latino Village. It does have its own website, so
Yes.
you could go to the buffaloLatinoVillage.com and be able to see all the artwork. In that webpage, we do have resources where our Latino artists can go to and find out who's who in the Latino art community, learn about past artists, So there's a whole spectrum of things that they could learn. Okay.
Yeah,
How
we're
will that
always
be-
looking for more.
Yeah.
We're
Right.
always we're inviting. We said, hey.
So it's a great way to get exposed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we have like for
Any
example.
cost? Is there any cost to it or for the exposure?
No,
Oh,
well, there's no
Yeah.
cost in general, but for us to be able to maintain
Oh, gotcha.
the Latino Village and the art gallery, the arrangements we make with the artists is that they give us their images. We don't take the original. We take the images. They give us permission to market, promote, and sell the images.
Okay.
So we do that. If people buy the images, they get royalties.
Okay.
Okay, they get royalties. If we happen to exhibit their work in a physical place, that wants to, so the cost is split. The artist gets his royalty, and then there's a commission that with the location we have the art piece gets.
Sure.
And then we get the rest to maintain for the cost and labor of maintaining the art gallery in the Buffalo Latino Village.
How much success have you had in terms of moving or helping to sell some of this or sell some of these images?
The images sell for $20.
Okay. And you've had success doing it? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, we have some success. I mean, not great success.
Of course, yeah, but
you can see the growth and the development. It's the same way the Buffalo Latino Village
Right.
grew from 4 to 12 pages.
Right.
We grew from 2 artists to 20 artists,
Right.
and it's still getting more.
Right.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't know we
right,
exist
and
yet.
we-
Well, exactly.
we are-
well, hopefully now a couple more.
And the artists were happy that we pay royalties every November.
Okay.
So they were happy to get royalties.
Sure.
So yeah, but basically that's it. They give us permission to market, promote, and sell the images. If anyone is interested in their original work, we put them directly in contact with the buyer. We don't handle or deal with the original. You
Right.
know. Okay.
How much have you gotten to know some of these artists? Have you been able to get to know some of these artists?
I know the local artists.
Yeah. What
I
can we get?
haven't-
What can you tell
I
me?
haven't met the out of town
Out-of-town ones, yeah.
But they're happy to be part of the operation. They're happy that they're getting that exposure, that they have a platform now to share their work.
Yeah, especially the young artists. They'll just send an email or through social media saying, "Hey, I'm interested in working or partnering for my art piece," and we invite them, and then they understand. We send them how the program works, and that's from that. But some of our artists usually will stop in if we have a free, open, public exhibit, just to at least meet the spectators or the audience that comes through. So we encourage that. So there is, against the generational gap between young artists who just want to communicate
Right.
through email, phone call, or text, and then the older generation that says, I want to meet my people or engage with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but I was going to say that we're talking about the other Museo and Tista del Barrio, that we really need to reach out to them and work together.
Right.
To enhance the work of the Latino artists. The more we work together, the better it is for the artists.
Yeah. So you can go online to
You go to Buffalo Latino
the village.
artgallery.com.
So it's separate.
Buffalo Latino artgallery.com.
Okay.
And you have access to all the work, the history of Latino art. You learn about, for example, a lot about the Campeche, who was one of the greatest Puerto Rican artists in the world. Very few people know about him.
I don't know if you could see that in my face.
His
but
work
yeah.
is all over Europe, and so we try to also bring that education information to young people. So, Yeah. So you have to visit the website to get an idea
Of what it's all
the
about.
fruits that are there.
Yeah.
you know,
What
that he had.
I guess what inspired you to do this?
Well, I'm a writer. I'm a poet. Done poetry readings in New York City along together with artists, and I always know that when it comes to being an artist or writer,
Oh,
you're
he's being
starving.
modest. He used to paint too,
You-
according to his daughter. His
Oh,
daughter's
I don't,
one
I
of the
don't remember.
artists.
Yeah,
Ah.
but I don't remember that.
Yeah, but
I
I don't think
see-
we we talked since we went on the air that you had a seizure and you lost
I had a seizure.
lost a
in New
significant
York
amount of
City,
your
yeah.
memory.
I was involved in economic development committee here. They developed a concept called La Fortaleza concept in New York City when I lived in East Harlem. And La Fortaleza concept was business economic development, but with an art theme, so that if you dedicate an area or zone area for economic development to benefit the local businesses, you would focus on art in the area, and you develop operations where you bring in the artists, the poet, the artist, the photographers to perform, to entertain. And if you do it in that specific zone area where you have the local Latino businesses, you're generating increasing consumer traffic. So
Right.
that helps the local businesses. So there they'll be able to see real economic development, Okay. So during that time I had my seizure. I lost 40% of my memory. And that's when my daughters went to New York City and told me, Papa, you have to go back to Buffalo. No ifs and buts.
Right. And I also like to remind you that you and your team created a mural here in Buffalo for the NFTA.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I did hear that story. It's at the station that was renovated, right? Allen
Yeah,
Street,
that's when I
When you were
lived
here
here
originally, yeah.
in Buffalo. Yeah, I was doing the early '80s.
Okay.
The whole process for the mural started in '82, and it was put together. But then I left in '85. Yeah, and what else can I say about the mural? Well, the mural was taken down.
Right, it was
due
taken
to
down.
construction.
Was
of
the
medical
Allen Street?
school.
The
And
Allen
then when
Hospital?
it was taken down, it was never put back up.
Right.
I'm looking into that, doing some research because I was informed by a community planner that the any art piece that's part of public building, number one, if they're going to take it down, they have to inform you, let you know. And secondly, if the art piece is a public piece, if they take it down, they have to put it back up. I'm still researching that, to what extent is that true?
Right.
What's the logic to that? And if it's true, I need a pro bono lawyer because I don't have any money, to take the case. Because also one of the things that to realize is that from all the art pieces in each of the subway stations, from all of the pieces, we were the only piece they took down. So there's racial implication that it's the only Latino piece, art piece, that was taken down. All the other black and white pieces, they still up there, still intact. Okay.
We're
So
coming
that's
down.
something to look at.
Right. Maybe another show we can do that. We're coming down to the final couple of minutes here with Solomon Joseph and also Alberto Capas. And I'll ask each of you. I'll start with you, Alberto. What's next for Buffalo Latino Village? What's next?
Next is we're concentrating on the Speakers Bureau and the identifying other Latino writers so we could get them published. To stay away from that vanity press, we said save money because we don't charge. Okay, we charge a little bit just for the labor and the cost.
Right.
But other than that, we're not in it for the money. We
Right.
need to generate and enhance Latino talent and artwork. The other thing is we're thinking about sponsoring the first annual Latino Book Fair because if you see the first page of the Latino Village,
Right.
there's 10 local Latino writers, and we want to introduce those writers to the city of Buffalo, okay, and also provide a platform for these writers. So we're talking about working together with Ebate, Puerto Rican Center, to sponsor the first annual Festival del Libro, Festival of Books.
Nice. How about
So those are 3 projects that we're working on.
that's a lot of what's next. So I guess then finally for you, Solomon, what's going to move you forward? You forward.
Absolutely, and I did hint to that earlier in the show about a multicultural celebration event. The first one I've hosted was in 2018, within 6 months of just moving in here, to really collect the makeup of Buffalo, and now it's going to be held on March 9th at Buffalo State in the Student Union, and we're going to have the Puerto Rican drum and dance, the African drum and dance, the Bollywood drum and dance, the Polish drum and dance, and the indigenous dance group. So those 5 groups combined to really take a big step forward from the show we first hosted with the Native American Community Services on February 9th from 3 to 6 p.m. at the Student Union.
March 9th?
Yes.
March 9th. Okay, very good. All right. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate your time being with us today. Thanks for being on What's Next.
Thank you. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Our guest today, the publisher of Buffalo Latino Village, Alberto Capas, and the editor, Solomon Joseph, with us on What's Next. This is What's Next on WBFO and WBFO HD1 Buffalo, WOLN Olean, and WUBJ Jamestown, your NPR station.